You're listening to the Nutmegged Arena by the Nutmeg Assist.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the TNA Podcast, brought to you by the Nutmeg Assist. Myself, Rithwik, the host for the show, and I'm joined by Chris, the co-host of the podcast. Welcome once again, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
How are you feeling after the weekend?
It's been pretty hard to sleep. I don't usually find myself, at this particular end since we, started the podcast. But obviously the time has come. I think the power shift in Merseyside is slowly coming up, right?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. I had a really good. I don't know why though. There was just a something when I woke up Monday morning. I just felt it was one of those feelings when you just realise there is a God. Finally.
Yeah. I think this. God finally thought that all right. So Everton's been kind of behind the scenes for a long time. Let them have some limelight as well, spotlight as well. That's the first talking point of this episode. Liverpool getting battered by Aston Villa out of no one. Obviously, it wasn't the same Aston Villa we saw last season. This season, they showed that they've done some amazing recruitment. They've improved because they won their first two games as well in convincing fashion. Emiliano Martinez, Watkins, Ross Barkley on loan, Matty Cash. They've made some really good signings which just definitely improved the team. Emiliano Martinez was arguably one of the best keepers in the league last season once Bernd Leno was injured. He came up, and I think that from the day he started for Arsenal, he was the best keeper in the league, and that is without doubt as well. And he is a massive signing for Villa. He actually made some really good saves in this game as well. And Matty Cash, again, a really good player that they bought. Ollie Watkins from Brentford was amazing coup, and I think he's going to get a lot of goals. He got a hat-trick, obviously. Could have got a fourth goal as well.
Yeah, are you trying to glorify Aston Villa to make this sound less of a humiliation by any chance?
I'll probably have to try to glorify aspect.
Yeah, because I had to sort of like I had to shake my head then because I thought you were talking about Bayern Munich for a minute there.
Obviously Aston Villa is Aston Villa with Dean Smith, but they are probably a little bit more interesting team. 7-2, it's pretty much a humiliation, not a humiliation. I was actually barking at the Liverpool players on my screen when we started conceding left and right. From the beginning, Adrian made that horrible mistake, and to everyone listening to the podcast, I'm not an Adrian fan. As long as he wears the Liverpool shirt and he's on the pitch, I'm going to back him. But he is not good enough to be a backup keeper forget Liverpool, but not anyone in the league. He's been really poor last season as well. He was poor, but we got away, and somehow we managed to win the league. But it's going to be very hard this season with him in goal because he never looks comfortable on the ball, Chris. He never looks comfortable in handling. And there was a moment in the game where I don't know who delivered the cross, and Ollie Watkins hit the bar. Adrian was actually running towards the corner flag. He completely misjudged the ball, and luckily it did not go in. Otherwise, it would have been forever. It would have been a meme out on the internet. My God, this is the kind of performance that makes me go. Come on.
Yeah.
This has to be it. This has to be it. So, obviously you said you enjoyed, but did you think Aston Villa completely dominated Liverpool tactically over the park?
No, I don't. All jokes aside, obviously I watched the game just as much as everyone else. I was quite intrigued as to what was going on in front of my eyes because I don't think anyone would have predicted this. Certainly in the manner in which it happened. Don't get me wrong, I think we all envisaged Liverpool having a tough game just because of the way they not only have started this season but finished last season. Don't think they're quite the team that we were seeing this time last year, but we'll get onto that in a little minute. Tactically it was just I think we all knew how Aston Villa were going to set up. Don't think it was any kind of any genius work, with all due respect to the manager. I just can't believe how much Liverpool played into their hands and I mean, it was notable from about 5 to 10 minutes into the game what was happening and what Aston Villa were going to do. And Liverpool just didn't. I mean, I'm generally speaking here, I don't know if they underestimated Aston Villa from the outset. I don't know if maybe the lack of preparation for the season, and I know the season's 3 weeks old and Liverpool come into this in fairly good form, having won 3 out of 3. It is 3 out of 3, isn't it? Arsenal, Chelsea and Leeds, who are obviously Arsenal and Chelsea respect, and Leeds themselves, all respectable opponents. So I don't think you can knock Liverpool's form coming into the game. But I mean, I think this game represented what could be a bit of a bigger problem in terms of the way they're approaching teams tactically. And what I mean by that, Rithwik, is that obviously they played the high line got found out in this game. Okay, it got found, and I think it was getting found out after, like I said, around. I think it was fairly notable about 10 minutes into the game. I know the first goal is a goalkeeping error. There's no issue with that. It happens sometimes. Okay, and when you're a team as good as Liverpool, you've got the capacity within the front three alone to overcome individual errors like that. So again, that's unlucky. Okay, even though, again, it is becoming a bit of an issue with that keeper, the lack of trust that his defence has and a lack of trust that everyone associated Liverpool, all the fans have with him. There's no secret there. But the high line, we'll stick about we'll talk about this game. The high line in open play is one thing. Okay, we all know that when a team plays a high line, you've got to press from the front. The midfield have got to press. I don't want to say press zonally, but it's all got to be cohesive. If you're playing with a high line, the front three have to press, and if the opposition have to then beat that front three, then the midfield have to press. Okay, and then it goes in a pattern like that. The front three, obviously, Sadio Mane was missing, so he is very good off the ball. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's good off the ball as what he is on the ball. Because on the ball, for me, he's world class. And Diego Jota, as good as he is, he's not Sadio Mane, and I still think he's finding his way into the Liverpool team. Okay, so I mean that was an obvious miss, and when you take him out of the team, okay, maybe you lose a bit of that pressing pattern, so to speak. Yeah. But as I've mentioned to yourself, at what point during this game, or during the first 10 minutes, or the 15 minutes, or the 20 minutes, did Liverpool's defence look at each other and go, hold on, the midfield are not doing what they're supposed to do here, and we're going to get bypassed continuously? Where was the player responsibility within the team on Sunday? I just didn't see it from minute one. And again, many people can say the manager's got it wrong with the tactics. Maybe that is a case. It is some kind of defensive issue, as shown in the Leeds game. But individually, the players have to take responsibility for Sunday. Okay. Again, I'm not, as much as I sniggered in the second half, and I did do a lot of laughing, forgive me for saying that, I'm at a loss to explain it, because I've watched the game and I've watched a few clips since Sunday to say, right, well, this person didn't do this, or this person didn't do that, or there we go, that part of the game, they didn't close Jack Grealish down. How did they let Ross Barkley have that much space? But it was just 90 minutes of like just pure shambolic all over the pitch, over the pitch. Midfield, I mean, goalkeeper, defence, midfield, front three. Okay, and like I said, I've sort of gone over a few things there, maybe without explaining it in too much detail, because I just wanted to get that point out. But Liverpool, again, I don't know if because of the lack of pre-season that they've had this year, are they not paying enough attention to the opposition? Are they just sort of saying, right, this is how we play, we've proved that we can dominate in the way that we play, and therefore let other teams worry about us? Because surely in that game they must have looked at Aston Villa's team and thought, right, well, Jack Grealish, okay, he's not world class by any stretch, but he's a very, very good footballer. He's their main player. He's playing sort of wide in a 4-2-3-1, wide left. Okay, why don't we try and isolate them and nullify him? Ross Barkley, again, as I mentioned to yourself off here, Ross Barkley's not picked up any kind of consistent form throughout his career. I mean, some say that there's issues into maybe of a lack of a decision. He's not a good decision maker on the field. So
yes. I mean, in terms of football intelligence, like as people say, I don't think he's up there again. But he has some really good qualities. But in terms of football intelligence, I don't think he's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to say he's good technically, but again, it's all well and being at a technical skill. But if you don't know when to pass, how to pass, where to run, and when to run on a football field, you're going to get found out, especially in the Premier League.
Spot on.
Yeah. But at no time did I see him getting closed down.
Yes.
Apart from, there was one significant period when in the first half when he had to run on the defence, and it was actually Virgil van Dijk that actually had to come out. Did he get the yellow card when he took him out?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, that lack of understanding when your centre half is having to come out of his line, so to speak, to actually meet an oncoming midfielder from the opposition. It's just not something that you're used to seeing when a team plays Liverpool.
And honestly, because I didn't rewatch the game because I didn't feel like it was horror. 90 minutes was enough horror for me because I've been so pissed at Liverpool since Sunday. But again, in that game, what I saw was lack of individual performance. There was a lot of individual players who were piss poor in the game. Virgil van Dijk, I hate when people criticize him because I think he's really, really, really good. One of the best defenders ever in the Premier League. But that game, even the deflected goal, okay, you would probably say that deflected goal, it's deflected, so it's a little bit unlucky, but he didn't get his body position right initially. And he was a bit slow to react again to get his body position right because the ball went out. There was time for him to adjust himself, but he didn't. The ball deflected on his feet and went in. That is definitely his mistake. His partner Joe Gomez, he's looked actually pretty weak since the restart, and this particular game again, I think one of his poor pass led to Aston Villa's 6th or 7th goal, if I'm not wrong. 6th, I feel. It was 6th goal, which was courtesy of Joe Gomez's poor pass. 6th or 5th or 7th, I don't remember because there was so many goals, which obviously is hard to remember at this time. But again, he had a shocking performance. Midfield was totally non-existent. The only two players I felt was contributing something for Liverpool was Andy Robertson on the left flank, Mo Salah up top. Diogo Jota had some really good moments in the first half.
He huffed and puffed, didn't he?
Yes, in the second half, I think again he faded because obviously the whole team was shambolic. Salah, Robertson tried, but other than that, shambolic. Firmino's form has dipped a lot recently. And I know people are very, very critical of him recently, but I think what he offers to the team is obviously, it's not something that you can expect anyone else to offer a lot. But I think Takumi Minamino might be seeing that and looking at Jurgen Klopp and saying, "Boss, you definitely have to consider me now because Bobby's dropping form, and I'm actually having a good run of games now in the cup competition. So definitely I'm gonna have a shout." And I do think that Taki deserves a shout for a starting spot now because, I'm really, really being critical of Firmino maybe, but I think if this form continues, I think Minamino might get a good run of games in the starting 11. So it's not far.
Yeah, it will be interesting. What he does from now, considering that there'll be plenty of people looking at it and thinking the international breaks come at the right time. I actually think it's come at the wrong time for you. Because you now have to not dwell on this, but he hasn't got the players in training until the Thursday, I think it is, before the next game, which is obviously, as we both know, the Merseyside derby. So that could backfire in the fact that you haven't got a chance to get this out your system, and the players haven't got a chance to maybe look at this collectively as to what went wrong, how it went wrong, and what they have to do to rectify that. But just going back to the match itself, let's give Aston Villa credit as well. Like I said, they've come into this in good form. They've obviously looked at Liverpool and thought, we know how to hit them. We've just got to take our opportunity when it comes. Now, normally when you play, I think they probably admit themselves that they got a lot more opportunities than what they had planned for because let's face it, you're playing the league champions who were by far the best team in the country last year. I don't think there's any dispute in that. But I was speaking to someone, funnily enough, this afternoon, about the game, a Liverpool fan, and he said, "Oh well, all they done on Sunday was just play the ball in behind the fullbacks." Well, actually, watch the game and watch the clips again. It actually does them a little bit of disservice because they did actually play through the midfield as well, and as easy as what Liverpool's midfield did make it for them, Aston Villa did. They caused Liverpool a lot of problems with direct running, just simple runs, whether it was running on the ball or running in behind the defence. Now,
yeah, every Aston Villa attack was a chance, literally.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen a team in this country. I know, again, a lot of people might listen to this, or whoever listens to it, and say, "Oh, well, he's an Everton fan, he's going to get his digs in while he can," etc. Now, I can't remember ever seeing a team create so many chances so easily in a football match in the Premier League. Now, there'll be people out there that'll be able to give me stats to show that there has been, and I'm sure there's been more shots and more chances in certain other games, but not given the disparity between the two teams and given what's been achieved between the two teams in the last 12 months. Surely not. It should have been 9. Because Ollie Watkins should have scored that goal and Ross Barkley should have scored the one. I think it was his first chance after it was 1-0. He should have made it 2-0. So it should have been at least 9 if you count those chances. But yeah, I looked at Liverpool's team as well before the game. I actually think that's Liverpool's best midfield. I don't know what you think about that. I mean, again, a lot of people say, well, Jordan Henderson obviously was missing and he's Liverpool's best player. But I mean, in terms of individually, in terms of the amount of talent that those 3 players have, then I actually think that is Liverpool's best midfield. Okay, they might not be, in terms of performance, the best midfield that Liverpool have got, but for me, Fabinho, Naby Keita and Wijnaldum are actually Liverpool's best midfield for me. And to watch them get pulled apart in the way they did and get dominated, let's forget about John McGinn. I'm a big fan of John McGinn. I said in the summer I would love Everton to buy him because I didn't think Everton transfers were actually available to get to them. John McGinn and Douglas Luiz were fantastic. Do you know what I mean? They'd done the job well. They didn't do anything sort of out of this world because they didn't have to. They won the ball and then just played the ball forward, and they just broke between the lines. And again, speaking about the individual performance, I think they were all 3 were poor. But in terms of trends, I don't think Trent Alexander-Arnold has started the season well at all, has he? I really don't. And I think this game was just the icing on the cake really for him, because I thought he was shambolic. I always think people do fullbacks, and him in particular, a disservice in relation to their defending ability just because they're so good attacking. When a fullback is generally so good attacking, some people make the wrong assumption that he's bad defensively. Okay, and I always thought last season, and maybe the season before, when people were talking about Trent and how obviously people are going to focus specifically on his attacking ability because he is Liverpool's most creative player, and he is a great fullback. There's no question about that. But people were just quick to nail him for his defensive ability. And I always thought that was a little bit harsh. I always thought, well, are you actually watching him before you see that, or are you just making the illogical assumption that if you're so good at attacking, you can't be good at defending? But the way he has started this season, for me, has highlighted, again, hopefully for Liverpool and him, it's just form and it's not an ongoing issue, but how poor he has been defensively. And in particular on Sunday, I was actually questioning myself at some point in the second half and a little bit in the first half as well, whether he was actually playing right back. Because I was thinking, have they actually changed the formation here without me knowing? Because he was getting caught everywhere. And I thought, that within itself amazed me. It really did. Again, you've mentioned Gomez. Robertson was, again, busy, as he always is. I think it's fair to say, okay, he tried, and he probably looked more dangerous than any other Liverpool player other than Salah on the field. But again, it's still a bit of an ongoing issue getting in behind Liverpool's fullbacks at the moment. Can I ask you, Rithwik, before we move on?
Yeah.
Were you surprised that Klopp didn't change this game once it got to 4 or once it got to 5? Or do you think he generally believed that Liverpool will get back into the game.
Yeah, I definitely think Klopp was also probably a bit at fault here. I think obviously this is the worst game under Jurgen Klopp. I think probably one of Jurgen Klopp's worst game in his managerial career as a whole as well, because I think he was not reactive enough. I think when we considered 4, he should have probably tweaked things, but he didn't. He always thought that we might have a chance, and he brought in Minamino. He made some changes, but again, I mean none helped. I don't think like he changed the system as such, which also led to even more and more problems as the game progressed. So I mean, obviously, I think Klopp probably also gets some stick, and I think he honestly accepted that in the post-match interview as well, saying that there were a lot of problems, not just a team, even on his part. So yes, I definitely thought that there was problem on him as well.
And I think that, I don't want to call it arrogance because that makes me sound like I'm slagging Jurgen Klopp off as a manager, but I think maybe his arrogance in his belief of the players getting back into the game rubbed off on the players, because the players just played like they were automatically going to get back in this game at every point. And I think, to be fair, even at 5, I thought, God, if Liverpool get 1, just because you're used to them doing it under Klopp and you're used to this team being so good and so potent in the final third, that you are just used to this team getting back into football matches. It's never over. But I think all the tactical hipsters out there will agree with me, or anyone who watched the game from a tactical or analysis perspective would tell you that Aston Villa were going to keep getting chances in that game. So therefore, they were always going to keep scoring, especially when the keeper was who he was. I think it's personally just a blip. Okay, I still think Liverpool are too strong not to be considered favourites, and I don't think the other teams are actually strong enough to challenge them. They might, if you want to look into it a little bit too much as a Liverpool fan, you could say that this has been coming since the restart last season, and that Watford, Atletico Madrid have maybe laid some foundations on how to beat. Yeah, I also thought Everton, when they played in that first derby, the 0-0 after the first game after the restart, again, it weren't much of a game in that day, but Everton had the best chances, and the way we defended against you didn't really allow you to play the way you did. Maybe there's a bit of an ongoing theme here for teams to maybe expose Liverpool, and maybe Klopp might have to look at that and maybe pay a bit more attention to stopping the opposition as well. I do think over the course of the season, Liverpool will be they will look back at this as maybe just a blip, as opposed to Manchester United, who I think have got far deeper problems.
Yeah, that's what we are going to come into now. Manchester United. As a club, we will discuss the impact of this result on Manchester United, and also touch on Spurs a bit. But as this 6-1 result, obviously it was a collective defensive disaster class for United. That Anthony Martial incident, which is a patent question from Dieter as well. Probably I'll start there. That red card played a huge part, obviously. Do you think it was a red card for Martial, or do you think even Eric Lamela should have been sent off?
No, I don't think Lamela should have been sent off. And yeah, I do think it was a red card.
Fair enough. I think Lamela made the most out of it. I mean, the obvious explanation, I guess, was that Lamela wasn't having direct eye contact with Martial, and he just flashed his elbow. So it was not intentionally, or it was like unintentionally intentional, you could say. So that's why he wasn't given a red, he was just given a yellow. As for Martial, he looked at Lamela, there was contact and there was eye contact, and it was an intentional one. And that's why it was a red card. So that was the explanation given by the referee panel. So obviously that makes sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously when these little incidents happen, and what people have got to remember is that you're not punishing the outcome, you're punishing the action. So whether Lamela made the most of it or not is irrelevant. Okay, yeah, you don't want to see it in sport, but it's always going to happen. It always has done. But you're not punishing the outcome. You're punishing the offence. Okay, and the fact is, Martial knows the rules of the game. You raise your hand towards the player's face, you're going to get sent off. You don't have to break someone's nose to be sent off. If you hit them in the face or the facial area, it's an offence. You don't say, okay, actually, let's look at Lamela. No, you haven't broke a bone today, so therefore it's only a yellow card. If you hit someone in the face, it's the intent that you're punishing, not the outcome. And again, it's easy for me to look at that situation from a neutral and not get angry, because obviously it's nothing. If it was my own team, I'd be like, Christ, look at him, he's gone down like a sack of spuds there. What's he doing? He's making a show of himself. Yeah, he might be. But the fact is, Martial give him reason to, and he knows that. You know now as a professional footballer, all the cameras, VAR included, you do anything like that, it's going to get punished, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Okay, there was a little bit of niggle beforehand, a little bit of shoveling in the stomach, and a little bit of nudging and things like that. Then, and I just don't know what he was thinking. And again, I think any Manchester United fan, if you take the red mist away and take the anger out of the fact of Lamella's reaction and look at the actual offence, you'll know it's a sending off. The rules of the game are there. If you hit anyone in the face, whether it be a punch, a slap, a flick, a poke, anything, it's a sending off. Okay, we can all sit here all day and discuss on a podcast, but hold on, maybe the referee needs to take a bit of responsibility and see whether he was actually hurt. Well, no, you don't, because where'd you draw the line then? What you're basically saying is that it's okay to do it as long as you don't hurt someone.
You look at United's 3 games this season. Crystal Palace, they got outperformed. Brighton, they got outperformed, but won with some luck as well towards the end. This game again against Spurs, completely outclassed by Jose Mourinho. Jose actually mentioned that you have to call him Jose, not Jose or Jose. So I'll just for Jose's sake, I'll just tell him Jose. He actually outclassed Solskjaer, and I think the whole blame goes to defense. Harry Maguire, Eric Bailly started. He was pretty average in the game.
Yeah, I watched this game with. Obviously the sending off has played a part in this, but I actually think Tottenham would have beat Manchester United anyway, because I think they're a better team than them all over the pitch. Again, and Tottenham could have, before the send. I just look from the minute I know the penalty went in and Manchester United took the early lead, but I think even once the penalty went in, I still thought Tottenham would win this game. And obviously the early goal, the early response helped them out a great deal, and they were fantastic. I think Mourinho could not have the last laugh at all his critics, because again, how can I word this? Because I'm a massive Jose Mourinho fan. I think he's done great in the game, and I think it's hard to judge him on what happened at Manchester United, because when you look at them now, you think, Christ, he didn't actually do that bad of a job. He could have the last laugh at all his critics this season, Jose Mourinho. I don't think he's good enough at the moment, back up there with Klopp and Guardiola, and again, even Klopp, and just Klopp on his own at the moment, because Guardiola is having his own issues. And again, I want to obviously get to Manchester United in a minute, because they're going to be the prominence of the discussion given the nature of the defeat for obvious reasons. But I think touch on Mourinho, because he's actually got a really, really good team here, and Tottenham are looking very, very good going forward. I think he's finally addressed, or he certainly appears to have addressed and adapted to transitional play. I think we all know what Jose Mourinho was out about before. Not before the Tottenham job, but even when he first took over the job, he was very much, don't want to say park the bus, but his attack and play was very structured, and he liked his teams to get behind the ball, and he weren't too bothered about his teams being dominant in terms of possession. I think that would be a fair. Would you agree with me on that? That would be a fair assessment.
Definitely. I'm looking at, and like Mourinho says, counter attack at its best. Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah.
But his teams, his Chelsea teams, obviously his Manchester United team, his Real Madrid teams, they weren't too quick to counter attack though. You couldn't say that they didn't. They weren't too focused on transitional play. They would happy defend for 90 minutes. If they won the ball back, they weren't exactly quick on the transition going to attack. But it appears that Tottenham, or certainly against Southampton anyway, and certainly against Manchester United, maybe it was just because of the way those two teams play. When they're in possession, they try and hurry forward. Jose Mourinho was actually coming to terms with modern day football, to put it in the best way, because they have been fantastic in transition, Tottenham, against Southampton and against Manchester United in particular. And they have been, and that then brings out the best in Son for me. When you're like that, I always said Son had the makings to be a Liverpool player because of the way Liverpool plays. Well, now he is playing in that type of team, and you're seeing the outcome of it, and it's taking the burden off Harry Kane as well, and allowing him to come deep a little bit.
Yeah, you have to actually credit Daniel Levy as well, because he's backed Mourinho. He's given Mourinho players that he wanted. Harry Kane, he's never been known for being, a creative player. Yes, he used to drop deep even before he used to try to make play, but he never got those numbers. But this season, or towards the end of last season, not towards the end of last season, I mean, obviously this season, he's been getting more assists now. Last 2 games, he's racked up more assists than what
Absolutely,
he was last 3,000 minutes or so. So it's brilliant work from Harry Kane.
Yeah, and I think that as well.
Yeah, Heung-min Son, again important. Sergio Reguilon, the signing, he looked brilliant on Sunday. He had loads of space on the left-hand side. Again, he started with Serge Aurier, and that was very surprising because I've always thought Serge Aurier was weak link there on the right side. I thought United would take advantage of that. They tried, but once the game completely shifted gears in Tottenham's favour, Aurier had his free time. He actually got assist for that fourth goal, Son goal, which was shambolic defending. I mean, we talked about Liverpool's defending. My United actually, comes close again.
Yeah, well, I just think that, like I said, I was mentioning how quick Tottenham seemed to be in transition in those 2 games, and you mentioned that obviously Mourinho previously was a counter-attack manager. Well, I don't know if I disagree with that all the time, because they weren't always willing to counter-attack. Sometimes they would happily not. They would just keep defending until the opposition made a clear and obvious error, and then they would pick up on the mistake and crucify it. That would be the best way of describing Mourinho's previous teams, as where now, the minute, whether the opposition make a mistake or not, the minute Tottenham win the ball back, they're on the attack. And again, that might change if they would say to play Liverpool or they would play Manchester City. But against these teams, the transition from defence to attack is so quick, and that's why you're seeing the results with Kane getting more assists and Son getting more space to run into. And if you add Gareth Bale into that, then and you keep him fit, then Tottenham could be a very, very dangerous team. And I think you do. I don't know if you want to credit with Mourinho for actually getting Daniel Levy to spend, but he has gone out and backed Mourinho this summer. So maybe Tottenham's issue previously maybe the issue fell on Pochettino a little bit more than what it did on Levy. Maybe that's worth Tottenham fans considering there. But yeah, we'll go back onto Man United, because I don't think they can get away with us not talking about them in this podcast. But
I just want to ask you. I just want to ask you a question on United. I mean, since we're talking about United, I just want to ask you a question. I mean, I obviously spoke about this a lot of times, so I don't want to repeat the same points, but I want to know your take on United, especially on this particular question, which is they did not sign a centre back. They sold Chris Smalling. Yeah, it's fine, because Smalling was never part of the plan, and he's not good enough again to play for United anymore. I don't think so. They did not sign a centre back this summer. Don't you think a centre back was priority? Yes, they brought in Alex Telles, left back from Porto, who's good. I won't say he's really good or exceptional. He is good, but again, I don't know if he's. I don't know how he's going to play in the Premier League. Obviously, I don't want to comment unless I see a few games from him. They did not sign a proper right winger. They did not sign a centre back. They did not sign a defensive midfield. They signed Van de Beek. He's not a defensive midfielder. They did not sign a defensive midfielder. 3 areas of the pitch which was particularly important for Manchester United to take that the next step from the 3rd place achievement last season. They did not make. I think centre back was important. Do you think that's going to cost them massively this season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned on one of our previous shows that I can't see this team qualifying for the top 4. Again, there's a lot of emphasis, and we've spoke about it ourselves on other shows, that on the board, and rightfully so, they've got a clear issue at a sporting director level on who they are going to get, how they're getting these players in, and why the players are getting identified. But I think, not why the players are getting identified, but why aren't they getting the players in, and the players that they're going after, why are they going after those players? Because of the positions that they play in. But I think as well, it needs to be worth noting, and I mentioned this when we was on our WhatsApp group the other day, is I can't understand why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is getting scrutinised as much as the board, because when you haven't got a sporting director in place, okay, and you've just got a chief executive in Ed Woodward, who obviously we know his issues and we know the criticism because we've given it to him ourselves and what his flaws are, but when you haven't got a sporting director in place, then surely it's the manager's job to say, I want a centre half, I want a left back. That surely that is the manager's job, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I don't.
Yes.
So I mean, has Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually got saying to Ed Woodward, why are you going after Jadon Sancho when it's quite clear we've got issues at centre back? we've got an issue up front. Now, again, we'll focus on the signings in a minute, or the deadline signings in a minute. But for me, I'm looking at United tactically, and I just don't know what they bring. Okay, I think they've relied heavily on Bruno Fernandes since he joined the club, and they've maybe got out. That was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's get out of jail free card last season for me, because obviously he changed the way teams played against them because of Bruno Fernandes. He's not going to win every football match for you. Again, what are they? What are Manchester United? Are they an attacking team? Are they a defensive team? Well, I hope they're not a defensive team, because it's worse than shambolic if they're actually trying to play defensive and that's the outcome. But again, there's no passage of play. I don't see them. I don't look at Manchester United and say, right, they attack down the flanks and they look to get balls in the box. It just doesn't seem to be any cohesive identity in terms of the way they play. And then you add the signings on top of that, and I look at Van der Beek, for example. I think he was fantastic at Ajax. Possibly could have moved on earlier. I'm surprised no one snapped him up earlier. But then and people will look at his individual talent and say it's a great signing. But if you actually look at it tactically and the way the team's set up, it couldn't be a worse signing. Because where is he playing? He plays in Bruno Fernandes' position. Now, they're not going to drop Bruno Fernandes. So what are they hoping Van der Beek is going to play? And again, I'm looking at the way Solskjaer is setting up in a 4-2-3-1 here. Van der Beek's not going to play as a pivot with Pogba. And surely, given how much they want Paul Pogba to stay, Paul Pogba is going to be the prominent starter. They have to play Matic alongside him just because of his defensive frailties as a player, or lack of capabilities defensively as a player. So where does Van der Beek come into that as a squad player? I'm not sure. I think Manchester United should be thinking to improve the first 11 before they start buying squad players. The whole of Twitter could have said, or the whole of the football world could have said, Borussia Dortmund will not sell Sancho after the deadline, which was the 10th of August. Yet Man United still seem to just keep getting linked with them and kept asking the question and kept probing. Maybe it's because they just thought because they're Manchester United and they will give in eventually. Well, unfortunately, their popularity or their dominance off the field in world football has clearly been downgraded because they haven't got that pull and power anymore. Edinson Cavani, for me, hasn't played football since February. Obviously hasn't trained with first team players since February, I think. Has been a free agent since the end of June, I think. So if that was a thought out transfer, why wasn't he brought in straight away?
It's all a panic.
Yeah,
panic.
It's just a mess. And again, I look at Solskjaer and I think back to the amount of criticism that ex-players like Gary Neville and Paul Scholes and Rio Ferdinand and any player that group gives Louis van Gaal. And I'm looking at Solskjaer's getting protected by these players at the minute because no one is willing to say a bad word about him. And the bad word should be he is not capable of doing this job. He hasn't shown anything yet for me. He's shown runs of form, okay, but most managers show a run of form throughout the season. He hasn't shown that he can stop a bad run of form, which is always an issue for managers, because I always feel the top managers, when their teams get beat, they only get beat for 1, maybe 2 games, and then they turn it around because they know how to turn it around. But Solskjaer doesn't know at the minute. He doesn't know, for me, how to beat the opposition. People go, well, he beat Brighton. Well, again, I think any kind of football fan watched that game. Brighton shot themselves in the foot with the chances that they missed in that game. So there's massive issues at Manchester United. Again, I don't see them getting a top 4 place. I'll be surprised if he's still in a job come the end of the season, given the fact that they are a Champions League club now and they may be more appealing. We know about the off the field issues, but for me, on the pitch, they are just as bad on the pitch as what they are off the pitch. And I just think, again, one more thing, sorry, Rithwik, I know we're going overboard, going over time here, but I did notice one little thing at the end of the game, which I don't know if anyone else noticed this, and I don't know if anyone listens to it wants to throw us a tweet out just to say that they did notice this. But we all know that Manchester United have been beat by big scores in the past. They got beat by 6-1 by Manchester City under Ferguson. They got beat 5-0 by Newcastle under Alex Ferguson. I think that was followed by a 6-3 defeat by Southampton, if my memory serves me right. But at the end of the game, I think Alex Ferguson would just go over, shake the opposition's hand, as would Jose Mourinho, as would Louis van Gaal, as would David Moyes. If they suffered any kind of defeat, humiliating defeat, or a defeat where you would expect them to win, they shake the manager's hand and then they steam off towards the Stretford end and into the tunnel. Okay, Solskjaer on Sunday went over, shook Mourinho's hand, and then walked onto the pitch and shook all the Tottenham players' hands, as well as his own teams. And I was sort of bewildered by it. I was thinking, what's he doing? Okay, he's going over to the referee, maybe to have a little bit of a word, but he didn't spend too much time with the referee. But he was shaking all the Tottenham players' hands as if he was congratulating them. And I was thinking, your team has just been embarrassed by a team that some people are saying are not good enough to finish in the top four. Obviously, that's clearly wrong, and they are good enough, and I think they actually will, Tottenham. But you're playing at Old Trafford, you've just been embarrassed. The first thing I would have been doing is shook Mourinho's hand, and then I would have been down that pitch to give the players a rollick, and I wouldn't have been walking on the pitch to shake the opposition's hands, or I wouldn't be to shake my own players' hands. I mean, what was his eye? If you didn't watch it, just watch it again if you can. Honestly, it was pretty embarrassing. And I'm not even a Manchester United fan. I thought, what is he doing? And I don't get me wrong, I know his association with the club, and as a player, he was fantastic, and he was a great ambassador, and he was involved in some pivotal moments, some of the greatest moments in the club's history as a player. But come on, some of the managers that this club have had in Mourinho and Van Gaal, for me, he's not getting scrutinised enough. There's clear limitations within his capability of doing that role, and I just don't. There's plenty of managers out there, high profile or not, who are more capable than him. And I'm curious to see where this goes now. Really am.
Yeah, and even Paul Pogba. I just want to touch on Paul Pogba as well. He's looked out of place in all the 3 league games that they played United this season. I know he got COVID. He was ill. Yeah, if he was ill, he's not fit. You can't play him. You just can't play him. If you're Solskjaer, if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and you see performances like that from Paul Pogba in the last 2 games against Brighton, against Palace, the first thing you say is, how can I start him the next game? He doesn't look fit. 1, he doesn't look fit. 2, his performances weren't good enough. It just weren't good enough in the first 2 games, first 2 league games specifically. He started against Tottenham. He gave away a cheap penalty, which he should never have. He got caught out multiple times in the pitch. He couldn't actually play his attacking style game because he was playing from deep. Yeah, he's expected to be that, connector, be that attacking threat lying deep, kind of a deep line playmaker. He didn't do that. He couldn't do anything at all against Spurs. I don't think he was. I mean, we've been seeing different managers in different seasons trying to unlock Pogba. We've been hearing about the term unlock Paul Pogba. I actually like Paul Pogba. I actually like the Paul Pogba I see play for France, for Didier Deschamps' France. But the Paul Pogba who plays for Manchester United is not good enough. I mean, obviously we all know how good he is. I mean, he's got into the team of the season twice, if I'm not wrong. He had an early bounce. Yeah, he had an early bounce. He had an early bounce under Solskjaer when he took over in January and from Mourinho. He had a good bounce. He had a good spell. I think that was probably his best season ever. 13 goals, if I'm not wrong. 20 goals plus 20 plus goals plus assists. I think most of them were penalties, but still, that is good number. That's a good number. But again, has he performed the way he could have, or has he performed to his potential? Nowhere close is my answer. I don't think he's been anywhere near good enough for his 89 million price tag that United paid. I don't think he's definitely, I don't think he's ever going to become the player he was expected to while he was at Juventus. Definitely he's not going to become that kind of player at Manchester United. I don't see him interested at times. I don't see him performing at times. I don't know if it's a manager issue. I don't know if it's a player, if it's him being disinterested. I don't think he's being disinterested. I think he's pretty professional as a footballer. Most pundits, I think, slander him off pretty much unfairly, especially Graham Souness. But I don't think he is good enough at times, most of the times. And this season, he started off poorly. And I think these are games where you could have tried to bring in Donny van de Beek and given him some minutes, especially against Brighton and Palace, and some extra minutes. And even against, Solskjaer took off Bruno Fernandes after 45. Yes, was it damage control? Yes, but Bruno Fernandes is their best player. You took that player off, and there were rumors of a burst up in the halftime dressing room where Bruno actually got at Harry Maguire. I don't know if it's true or if it's fake, but if it's true, I don't think I don't think it's bad, because that particularly shows that Bruno wants to win. It's kind of a winning mentality.
Shows that he cares, and that's why, again, sorry to interrupt you there, but who wouldn't be having a go at him in that situation? Because that is one of the worst pieces of defending I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. So Manchester United, even with the signings of Cavani, Pelistri, they signed Diallo Traore from Atlanta, who's not had much senior football. I don't think he's had any senior minutes, if I'm not wrong. They paid 30 million for him. For 30 million for a player who's going to join in January. So that actually shows the kind of incompetence at the board level. What you see on the pitch is incompetence with the manager. I don't think all the players are completely incompetent. You have good players like Bruno. Pogba is again a top player. I know he's not performing, but again, to be fair, he's a top player, but nowhere performing near the level he should be. Mason Greenwood is a very talented youngster. We've seen him. I think he definitely would do well with a better manager. Anthony Martial, I have mixed opinion on Martial, but Rashford again is really good. He's improved his overall football game as well, overall play as well, not just the attacking instincts. But is this the right manager for Manchester United? Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the right manager for United? I don't think so. I've never thought so. I've never thought so, and I've actually argued with United fans, giving my justifications. I know a lot of them would slander me for this, a lot of them would disagree, but as a Liverpool fan, I'd be more than happy if you go with Solskjaer for as long as possible. But honestly speaking, I think United need a better manager. Most importantly, United need a proper sporting director, a proper plan in place, and that I don't see it happening anytime soon. So that's with Manchester United. And moving on from Manchester United to our final talking point, which is the Lazio-Inter game in the Serie A. It was a feisty game. It was a feisty fury game where we saw 2 red cards. It was a very well balanced game, I would say. Both teams, Lazio as well as Inter, had good amounts of momentum in both the halves. Going by the match summary, the score was 1-1. If you look at the expected goals, Lazio had 1.21, Inter had 0.72, but that doesn't actually speak the whole story. I think it was much more balanced than the XG shows. Inter actually, the first goal that Inter scored, you could say that Lazio could have defended better, but again, it was a lucky deflection, which Perisic was controlling the ball, and the lucky deflection from a Lazio player brought it into the path of Lautaro Martinez, who tucked it in easily. So you could say, he was marginally onside there. He was being played by the left fullback, but you can't really blame Lazio defense for that. But Lazio had 3 substitutes, 3 injuries in the first half. Radu, Marusic and Bastos, who all 3. Bastos actually came in as a substitute for Radu, and he actually went off injured. So that was a big blow for them. I think for the first 30 minutes you saw both. I think it was more of Lazio who had a good spell, but then when after Inter scored, it was all Inter. I think they had better control of the game. But in the second half, for the Milinkovic-Savic goal, that was a good cross from Acerbi. You look at the way Inter conceded, Milinkovic-Savic was free. He was running directly into the box without any pressure, without any marker. He was competing with Perisic in the air. there's only one winner in the air if you put up SMS and Perisic. It's SMS, and he scored the goal. And after that, yes, Lazio had a good spell of dominant. There was a 10 to 12 minutes of dominance from Lazio where they had good chances. I think the best chance fell to Joaquin Correa, Lazio, in the whole game, which he did not convert. I think he should have converted that. That was the biggest chance of the game, which they did not convert. And even Marcel Brozovic got a lucky wicket deflection towards the end, which hit the bar, came out. And if that had gone in, it would have been, a little bit unfair. I think draw was a fair result. But again, Both teams could have won the game, and the most controversial incident would have been both the red cards. I mean, Ciro Immobile was down, fouled by Vidal. Vidal just went and poked him, kind of, pushed him or provoked him, and the reaction from Immobile was not good. Yes, Vidal overreacted, made the most out of it, got Immobile sent off. I think once Immobile got sent off, Inter slowly again creeped back into the game. Inter had some good spells, but again, even for the Sensi red card, even at the end, Kilpatrick was it who made the most out of it, and again got Sensi sent off with the second yellow. So both those red cards was questionable because made the most out by the opposition players. But Chris, as looking at this game as a whole, I mean, Lazio haven't started the season so well, but Inter have. I mean, did you see the game go ending up in a draw, or did you think? Or what was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it kind of had that feeling about it when I was watching it. Obviously, I think given the formations and the way they both tactically set up, the teams, they both tend to play counter-attacking football. Both play 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, depending on which way you want to look at it. I know Inter Milan, I see in this game, seem to have a bit more of a attacking threat than Lazio did, especially when they went through their periods of dominating throughout the game. It seemed to go back and forth. It seemed to be like Lazio have a good 10 minutes, Inter Milan have a good 10 minutes, and then it would sort of go like that throughout the game from what I've seen. I mean, it was quite fractious, wasn't it, the game itself? It was quite... I don't think there was any love lost between the two teams, but I think Inter Milan might be disappointed given the fact that they had a man extra up until the 86th minute, and the fact that they scored 5 against Benevento and scored 4 against Fiorentina. But I think it needs to be highlighted as well. Obviously, they conceded 2 against Benevento as well and 3 against Fiorentina. So it's not something you traditionally associate with Antonio Conte's team, conceding that amount of goals against those, especially in 2 games. So I think they might look at this and think of this as a missed opportunity, especially when you consider Lazio's form. Now, I think Lazio may have a bit of a deeper problem over the course of the season. Still think Inter Milan will be the closest team to take the title off Juventus this year, and I still think they will. That will be my prediction for the Serie A title this year, to finish at Inter Milan, or end up at Inter Milan, sorry. But I think Lazio took apart by Atalanta, I think it's fair to say, in the last game. Again, okay, they beat Calgary in the game before that, but I feel a bit sorry for Lazio, because for me, if the pandemic didn't happen last season, I think they would have won the league. I really do. I think they didn't have European football like the other teams did, and their squad, or their first 11 and maybe the 2-3 players outside of the first 11, say the 14 players, were good enough to cope with football with 1 match a week, which they were having. And I think the form pre-pandemic showed that. Obviously, they lost away after the restart because they were playing games every 3 days, and their squad just weren't big enough compared to, say, Inter Milan and Juventus's last season. And I think they fell short because of that reason. But I actually think that could be the end. This could be the end of the road for their team, as they've been quite fortunate over the years to keep Milinkovic-Savic. Immobile, for me, is a fantastic striker. Can he repeat the form that he repeated last year? I'm not so sure. Simone Inzaghi, I do rate as a coach. I think he's Italy's next best thing. I think so. He's done a wonderful job there, but it'd be really interesting to see if he can get the best out of this squad of players again. I know there's been a few additions throughout the summer, but I thought not so much this game. I thought against Atalanta, their frailties showed, and I thought they've got European football as well this year. Let's not forget they're in the Champions League, and who knows how far they'll go in that. But I don't know if their squad is capable of handling both. And I think they've been quite inconsistent in terms of the performance at the start of the season. I think it showed throughout this match as well. I don't know if there's a lack of confidence from that Atalanta game or not, or any kind of hangover from that game. I think they were outclassed by Atalanta, I really do. And I think Rithwik, my thoughts on Atalanta and my admiration for them as a team, and they will do that to most. They will do that to most teams this season, and I do think they'll do. It'll be very interesting, given the Champions League group, what happens in that as well. But I just thought Lazio showed in this game, they were good, like I said, they weren't consistent throughout the game. I thought they showed there was opportunity. Obviously, maybe they were put off by the sending off. By the injuries, again, wouldn't have helped. The substitutions wouldn't have helped. They don't look like they're fully in rhythm yet. They haven't got going yet for me. And it'll be interesting to see what happens over the season. And that's why I think Inter Milan will be disappointed that they've only took a point from Lazio in this game, especially given the fact that they did have for the best part of 20-25 minutes, they did have more players on the pitch, and the fact that Lazio had to accustom the injuries and the substitutions in the first half, that Inter didn't take the initiative and go on and win the game. Yeah, overall it was a very Italian game. That's my summary of that game. Very Italian.
Yeah, and individual performance as well. Luis Alberto was probably, for me, the best player out on the pitch. Also Barella was also really good for Inter. Luis Alberto for Lazio, but Lukaku kind of disappointed again. I mean, I thought he would actually go on and carry the form that he had before previously, but he kind of underperformed in this game, lost most of his aerial duels as well. So it's a mixed start for Lazio, who's kind of underperforming in their both expected goals for and expected goals against. I know it's just 3 games, which is a small sample size. Obviously, the expected goals model, it works well when you have large data or large sample space. But I think it's been like a mixed start for Lazio. As for Inter, I do agree with your assessment that they're going to be top challengers for Juve again, and might actually nick the title this season. Maybe we might see Inter win the Serie A or the Calcio this season.
I think we will. I think some of the antics within the summer from Antonio Conte were actually maybe a distraction, as to there was an opportunity for them last season to do it, and they didn't take it. And I think you mentioned there before we end the show, you mentioned Luis Alberto. For me, how has a top team not picked this fella up? Because for me, he's been one of the most underrated players in Europe for the last 18 months.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would even stretch that 18 months to 24 to 30 months. He's been that good.
Well, maybe since Simone Inzaghi just took over the club, really, and I wouldn't say they've overachieved every year, but they've done something of some kind of significance every year, Lazio, since Inzaghi's been there, and he's been at the forefront of it. I know Milinkovic-Savic seems to get the main attraction from the bigger clubs, but for me, Alberto himself has been fantastic. I mean, what kind of club would sell him? That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, not to forget that he was formerly a Liverpool player and a Liverpool flop.
That was my quiet dig at Liverpool there. If you had a player like that, why would you sell him? But that's what I was going towards there. Only a club daft enough to sell him.
A great week for you indeed, with all the banters and so that brings us to the end of this podcast. We will probably have a couple of podcasts if possible next week, a bonus one. So thank you so much again to all the listeners for tuning into this episode. We did not plan to stretch this podcast this long, but this is football and we just go on talking football. So that's what happens. So thank you once again, Chris. Glad speaking to you once again. Until the next episode. Bye bye.
As always, mate. Speak soon. Bye.